No. Hey, everybody. It's so exciting. We're back for Life on Purpose Live. I have a new friend today. Jim David is coming in from Arizona, right?
I am. Hello from Arizona. Yeah, 105 degrees and some monsoon weather outside. So
Hey, we have had sunny weather for the first time today in a long time, so we are not complaining. But Jim is a photographer. He is a filmmaker. He is very passionate, as I am, about storytelling. We met at a film festival where he's winning lots of accolades on his a strong finished film. So we're going to talk about that today. He is a family man. He's a father. He is busy as can be with what God is calling him to do. So we're going to jump in and talk to Jim about what God is doing and how God is beginning to shape you. So we can jump in with some of your family things and things like that. But you've had two crises that have shaped what you're doing now, and it kind of took you into, a potter's clay kind of mode. So you had a crisis with your hearing. You began to lose your hearing, and you decided to have surgery, and that didn't go so well. And not long after that, your son's coach you met, and he was dying of cancer. And these two things began to make you rethink about the purpose of life and the purpose of your purpose. So kind of jump in and talk about what God's been doing to reshape your heart through these things.
yeah, I mean, so and honestly, COVID has been in that equation too,
Exactly.
as I'm sure it has for so many people.
Yeah.
But I guess it's been 3 years ago. I have a conductive hearing loss that was getting worse and worse over time, and I started with a hearing aid in 1 year. I went to 2 years, and it just trying to keep up with it. I ended up having surgery 3 years ago, and when I got out of the first day I was out, first couple of days I could hear a lot better. It was supposed to actually, there was a good possibility I'd be able to hear without hearing aids. And so we started with 1 year, and then we were going to go back and do the second year. Well, a couple days after surgery, some kind of complication set in where I had terrible tinnitus in my ear. I'm not sure if they call it tinnitus, but it's a ringing in your ears.
Ooh.
And so it was. I woke up one night and I said, "Is there some kind of an alarm going off outside?" And my wife's like, "No." And it kept getting worse and worse. And so anyway, the short story is, it was had to go see the surgeon a couple times, but ended up being a 1% chance of a problem that I fit into that category. And so for all practical purposes, the chance of recovering that hearing, it actually got worse. It sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher, the garbled teacher, that you can't, really hear. So I can hear sounds, but I can't hear very good speech. So I still wear a hearing aid. They're in both ears, but I still hear one. I have one in one ear for me to hear from, so that I can hear sounds. But the only ear that I can actually hear audible speech from is on my left ear, even now. So without those hearing aids, I mean, I'm virtually deaf unless someone is screaming, within a foot of next to my ear. But because of that bad, the result of the surgery, they're not going to try to, work on my other ear. So basically, this is what I have. This is what I've got. This is what I'm left with. And
Wow.
so yeah, it was hard because I couldn't work. My wife at the time was working with me in my business, and so thankfully she was able to go to appointments with me or take care of all the calls. But I mean, I really could not communicate. Made me realize just like how much you take that for granted, just being able to communicate to people. And
I'll bet.
yeah, so and it's a kind of I don't like to use the word disability. Maybe it's my own hang up, but I don't have a cast on, on my ear. If I went around with something like that, people could see I've got a problem. But it's one of those disabilities that you have that no one knows you're dealing with that, whether it's the ringing in your ears, whether it's, noises or, and so, you tell people you have problems with your hearing and they might say, oh yeah, I do too. But I'm like, no, not like that. I mean, I really can't hear. So yeah, I was really questioning, how am I gonna,
How am I going to
do this?
And how am I going to communicate?
Yeah.
I mean, how am I going to resume life?
I'm a storyteller. If I can't hear what people are telling me, how can I tell stories? And so
right.
it's, it was, it hit me hard. It was, I mean, I think I was depressed for quite a while and really struggling with why God would allow that to happen to me. And, in the meantime, within, I guess, within a year, while I'm still dealing with this issue, my son was going to camp and a summer camp, and one of the gentlemen there, the coach that was running the camp, he was going through cancer, and he was having a lot better attitude about going through cancer than I was about my hearing. And
Wow.
and so and he went, when we actually took a photo that we used as a poster, one of the posters for the film, he had actually come out of what appeared to be successful bone marrow transplant. And so it was supposed to be when we originally talked about the concept, this was supposed to be a story of overcoming cancer, and how God was working in his life. And then the cancer returned, and it ended up being a different story that we told. And so, as I was working with him, it certainly was challenging how I dealt with it. It made me, I mean, there were many things at play, obviously, but it certainly, you're like, okay, if this guy is thanking God for cancer, then, I've got to find, people have it a lot worse than me. Life could be worse. And so how do I find a way to move forward with this?
He was walking out his faith when knowing he could possibly not make it at all. And I guess that served as an example to you to adjust your attitude to where you would be more grateful, as opposed to, I mean, it's a tough thing to walk out what you're saying with him and with you. But it's funny how not funny, but it's amazing how God puts someone along your path that kind of gives you a glimpse into something you can learn from him. And so you did a short film about his life. This man's story impacted you in such a way that you've done a short film called A Strong Finish. Tell me about the title of that.
Well, the title came from, from one of his answers when he talks about if God's only going to give him 42 years of life, then, what better way than all he had experienced with what he saw, how God was working in his life? What better way for him to sprint to the finish line and to end the race in with a strong finish? We all have our ebbs and flows and our ups and downs, but he was saying that, all he had seen, how God had worked, was just mind-blowing to him, and he wouldn't trade it. If it meant getting rid of the cancer and he wasn't able to experience what he saw, he would have kept the cancer to experience that, because he said, and he saw life through cancer. He saw, the purpose, and with much greater clarity than most of us, because we just have so much comfort around us, and when you're, all I can do is the best to relate to that. I could never fully relate to it, but, to have a death sentence, to have a doctor tell you that you have weeks to live, and to be so focused on, how God is working in his life, was just a privilege to watch, as much as it was hard and and difficult. And so it definitely had me, just it certainly, when you're part of the story, when you're always behind the camera, but when you're asking the questions, I'm impacted by the people that I work with all the time, even if it's a portrait that I'm doing, getting to know people, and it's a privilege to be invited into their life, to get to know little bits or larger pieces of them. And I've had people share with me things, even on a portrait shoot, that are just, amazing. And honestly, I think that those kind of things, as I started out in photography, started giving me a hunger, like, to know more about what's behind the faces, because there's so much interesting things that we can learn from each other. So Steve had that, we got that title from that. And the film actually was intended to be much longer. It was intended to be a much bigger piece. When I started filming, I was actually meeting with him to get people that we could interview, who we could talk to, and putting the production side of it together. And then, when it just appeared he wasn't doing so well, we cut it. We decided to stick with what we had, and I had to change. How do you edit a film when you're hoping he's going to live a lot longer, but also being prepared? I mean, honestly, I don't know how I did it. It was difficult. And so when it became apparent that he was in trouble, I kind of had to switch how I approached the film and how I edited it.
I bet. But what did you notice about his relationship with the Lord as he was walking through his last days? I mean, at that point, you have no choice but to draw deep into your relationship with him. I mean, what was he doing to keep that faith walk going in the midst of not feeling well, not a good outlook? I mean, what were the things that he was doing? I mean, he did have a strong finish based on your film. So what were the practices that he did every day, or was it just the relationship that he had with the Lord?
Yeah, I think he was much more focused on need water here, on where he was going.
Yeah.
And he was much more focused on his relationship with the Lord, on his, as he mentioned in the film, on his marriage. He told me, he would get up and, read from the Bible, like, a long time every morning, like first thing he would do, and memorize scripture, and just, I think, he just was, would have that personal time. And so, that's all I could gather, that, just kept him focused, versus, he said, when the cancer was away, it's funny, he called cancer a thorn in his side. I'm like, wow, I would call it more than that, right? But he called it a thorn in his side, and because it, it's a pain point, right? And so when we have a pain point, we tend to focus on that pain point, versus when things are really good, we don't tend to be as focused. We don't tend to be as deep. We don't tend to be, as contemplative about life. And so it forced him, I think, in the film, and it's they talk about how even as a married couple, they started praying together. He said, when I first started having cancer, I just tried to do it on my own, and then he realized he can't do it on his own. So he started, just reaching for the Lord in that, and to watch him talk about it, and to hear about just how they had walked it out, was pretty amazing. Well, I have so much footage of even things he was talking about that didn't fit into the story, what we told, that was meant for longer pieces. So.
Well, and what he did was, we talk about life on purpose, but because he valued the time that he had left, he lived every minute of every day on purpose. He had an intention about what he wanted to do before he passed. And I think that's, unfortunately, we don't learn from people like him well enough. We still get caught up in the day-to-day. So let's talk about storytelling, because you've won awards for film. You've won Emmy Awards. You do still photography. You do a lot of different things that help tell a story. What is it? We've got media today. We've got Facebook. We've got Instagram. Now, I like to say we change the world one story at a time. And, one of the ways to do that is by sharing your God stories. But people think they've got to share the whole story. So what makes for a good short story in the soundbite society we're in today?
Yeah, I could give, so I'll share like bits and pieces and advice. I mean, I think, I guess there's at some point, you've got to be good at recognizing it. Some people may not have that ability to recognize it, but a lot of times we tend to overshare. And funny, because I have a tendency, especially if I'm uncomfortable, I can just keep talking.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I like about film is, edit. I can, and so I just 2 weeks ago, I went hiking with my son, and he loves taking the camera, filming, and he films everything. So we came back with like 20 minutes of footage, and he wanted to start using Adobe Rush on the iPad to put it together. And so he's got like 12 minutes of walking through the desert. And I said, we got to get that down to about 90 seconds. Dad, I can't do that. Like, look at all these cool things I have to get rid of. And I said, yeah, I know. It's interesting to you, but is it interesting to someone that doesn't know all of this stuff? And and it's hard. I mean, it gets hard. It gets easier over time. I don't struggle with it anything like I used to, because I'm much more focused on what am I trying to say? And as good as something can be, if it doesn't fit into the purpose, I tell people, know what is your point in the story, right? What are you trying to say? What is just think about a message, an elevator pitch. What are you trying to say? If what you're trying to tell people doesn't fit with that pitch as a broader example, then you've got to, toss it to the side. And because, if you overshare, then people are going to lose interest really quick. So you have to keep it engaging and interesting. So I'm actually I told my son he's got like another week to get that down, or I'm going to show him and he's going to be like, no, So I need to show him, we have to think about, put yourself on the other side of, the story, and, and so that you have to just basically share things that are compelling and interesting. And again, some of that, that's why we're in the business that we're in, right? Because we can recognize that better sometimes, but people can certainly, for those that are listening, if they're, and from a creative standpoint is, just think of things that are compelling and interesting and how they're put together, and just, the more concise you can be, the more you're going to hold interest, and at the same time, backing them up with good visuals, if you can, is going to be important. So, what I look for is I look for why, even if it's a photo, if you don't know why you're taking it, no one else is going to know why you're taking it. So you need to know, you need to answer that question. Why am I making this film? Why am I taking this photo? And if you don't have an answer for that, then I think,
or why am I posting this?
Yeah, exactly, right.
Often, we have an incredible tool in the social media, but too often we give very little thought to why we're posting something. We're not going to win a lot of battles that are out there in the social ills in the world, but we could make a valid point towards something that is constructive and positive.
Yeah, and I think for me, I have an Instagram account that I hope to get back to soon, but I haven't posted on anything, maybe 5 things in the last 16 months. I haven't posted much because I think with COVID, and as I've been contemplating, I started out in commercial photography, but I would say I'm almost I'm almost entirely, I just did a photo shoot earlier this week, but I'm almost entirely film now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just been gravitating to that. I like it, and I don't have time to do all of it. So for my existing clients, I still do the commercial photography, but I'm pretty much everything in for film. And so, but as I think about what to post, it's, yeah, why am I posting this? And honestly, COVID, so many things just have me, I've been in a reevaluative, contemplative stage, over, the last year. And if I guess until I have a little bit more clarity of what I want to do, I've just kind of sat back because, I mean, you can post things, but I guess I want to start having more purpose, more,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be more intentional about what it is I'm looking for. And I don't want to post something just so people can say, oh, cool, look at that. I want it to be a lot deeper than that. So
I think that's a great point, because I think people are just trying to post a lot. And I mean, I fall prey to this too, is, oh my gosh, I haven't posted anything, in
right.
2 days, and I've got to, post something. But the truth is, less is always more if it's got a point to it. And so
I agree.
Yeah, which leads to, you're talking about purpose. Your purpose is clear. You're making films, you're into photography, and you're storytelling. But what do you say to someone who is struggling with the topic of purpose, and they don't really know? I mean, especially coming out of COVID, people really want their life to matter. They want more purpose. I mean, that's the one thing we all have in common. What do you say to someone who's really not sure how to find that thing or that door or that opportunity that helps them feel more on purpose with their life?
You need to find it. I mean, and I know you need to make the time to find it. You need, and it might mean, I try, COVID was crazy, but I would try to, again, having a family and having a 6 and 7 year old, he was 6, now he's 7. How it's really hard to have those moments if I need to think through something. Why, what, I have ideas in my head, or I don't have enough time to be, to contemplate, where I want to go. And like when I started in photography, we were told to write our artist statement. Man, that was hard to write. It's very different today than it was then. But when I had to go to a coffee shop in a back booth and lock myself in there for 2 days to try to really ask myself, what am I? What am I doing? What? And so it's hard. And if something's hard, right? Like going to the dentist, none of us love it, right? Because it's not fun. And so we avoid it. Oh, you know what? Let me put that appointment off, right? But when you're in a setting like a school setting, and then there's you need to do this. Well, and you have a deadline, that makes it harder. Well, I've learned over time that, sometimes my wife and I have talked, I'm like, I need to go to, a retreat center for 2 days and just, focus on me. I need to, read the Bible. I need to really kind of get a sense of what is it that I'm trying to do, and where do I want to go? Because otherwise you just start working and you're COVID was a moment like that too, but you just keep kind of, following what everyone is sending you. And before you know it, you're like, okay, this isn't really who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So I think that you really have to force yourself to deal with that pain point, and to say, if you need to go lock yourself away, from your kids or from your, to just really ask yourself why you're doing something. And that's hard. That's hard. It's hard for anybody. But I think that in our day and age, we just try to avoid that. And so I'd say you need to try to look at it in the eye, and deal with it. And
sometimes people try to find that purpose point, or that, that that trajectory for life by trying to do everything, hoping one of those things will stick out. But what happens is all we do is we wake up a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, haven't been busy, but we're no more insightful on that part of us who, and what you're saying is so true. Sometimes we have to step back and shut everything out and say no to everything until we just really have a minute with ourselves. We pray, we ask God, and when it all else fails, just ask God, what is it I'm supposed to be doing with my life? And sometimes it's not about what you're doing, it's who you are. If you're frantic, if you're running crazy, it's time to step back and be the person on purpose so that you can then do things that are more on purpose. And I think that's pretty well said. Sometimes lock yourself up in a room and have some introspection and let go of some stuff instead of adding stuff.
And it's hard. I mean, it's hard. And I think that the one thing, as hard as COVID was, it forced me to just say, you know what, I need to use this time to try to redefine like where my next steps are. And we don't usually take the time to do that. And I think a lot of people had more time to do that, which is why I think you're seeing people making, right? After COVID, you're seeing kind of more drastic changes in people because they actually took the time to do something that they don't normally do.
Yeah, I think that's so true. So you're still filmmaking. You've kind of gone into that. So where can people keep up with what you're doing and go watch A Strong Finish, because it is a great short film. It's very humbling, but it's very inspiring. That guy is so inspiring. So I did put it in the notes on our interview, but it's 10 minutes. It's about 10 minutes. And
yes.
People can go watch it. And what other things are you working on? You said you're working on some suffering.
Yeah. So, it's like, I'm kind of for Strong Finish, and there's been really some incredible stories that have come like on the backside of it that I won't get all into now, but it's being offered by Rediscover TV on Roku, so people can find it there. Okay. And Redeem TV is going to be having it up for them to see. I'm not sure what the timeline is, but it will be available on Redeem TV also. Yeah. And so, because I do, I want people to be impacted by, just the message of the film. And so I've had so much positive feedback on it about people just saying, wow, like it was so great to hear this. And so I've already started initial production to start a feature film on the topic of just how God uses suffering and how really kind of uncommon testimonies to make people, because people saying, or if people see suffering, it's sometimes a big reason on why, well, there can't be a God because, look at all this suffering. And I don't want to try to deal with that philosophically, but I want to propose, I've seen people in my life that have gone through terrible circumstances I would never wish on anybody. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them grow closer to the Lord, and I've been in awe, like they're my spiritual heroes. Yeah. And I want to illuminate those stories because they're hard stories to tell. And honestly, I mean, so I've been compelled to tell this, and sometimes it's frustrating because like I'm kind of ready to move on because these are hard stories to tell, but I want them to be stories of hope. Yeah. That when you see this, that it's not like, I'm not watching a train wreck. I'm watching something beautiful come out of something that was hard. So I want it to be, while you hear some, I want it to be a positive story. So we're working on a full feature, and we've already, we're still looking for people for the film. We have a couple people that we're in serious talks with, You know, we're in the production phases of, you know, and we're also looking for financing. So if all of those things are coming together, and so we're looking forward to, you know, you know, what that can do. And but that's you know, that's like one direct result of what's happened, a strong finish. And then of course there's other projects besides some of the smaller commercial projects that I'm working on that I want to get into. I have several other documentaries that I have planned for the near future that would include fatherhood and a couple other stories that, as they come out, I'll get that information out so that people can, you know, follow along and you know, and jump into the you know, they can join the stage of how that's coming together.
Well, that's very good, because anytime you can come into someone's pain and bring hope by showing stories of hope, then, you know, you get people through stuff that, you know, you feel like you're not going to make it through, but then you hear a story of someone else that did, and, you know, then one step at a time you go. Well, this has been really good. I mean, we could talk all day, but we got to jump off. But I'm so excited for what you're doing. I'm so excited that we met. And we're going to be watching the films that you're making and the things that you're doing, because you're bringing hope and you're sharing those stories that, like we say, we change the world one story at a time. Right.
It's been a pleasure. I'm so glad that we met, and you know, initially met your husband, and he was so gracious. And so thank you. I look forward to you know, what the future holds. So
yeah, me too. We'll definitely loop back around and do this again, and keep us posted on what you're doing. And Godspeed. I hope that he just showers you in blessings with all these new films.
Thank you, Beth.
All right, we'll talk soon. Talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.